Hey, everybody, and welcome. Hello, big aloha to all of you. I'm Natalie. This is Life After a Cult, the channel where we expose what? Cult nonsense. We laugh at the absurdity, and the hope is always that we unbrainwash ourselves in the process. Because let's be real, there's a lot of brainwashing going on, especially online. I'm sure you guys know nothing about that. Today, we're going to dive into some hard truths about self-reflection, growth, healing after leaving a high control group. Facing the past isn't easy, but it's necessary for moving forward. Plus, we have some news about Danny Masterson's documentary that's coming out that is a go, and that has me so excited I can't even stand it. But I have to wait till we get to that part of the show here. So, aloha and welcome, everybody. If you're on the replay, welcome to you. Jump in those comments. Let us know your thoughts. Answer some of the questions. We got a great question of the day today up in the chat, and it's, do you believe in second chances? I want to know what you think. Put your answers in the chat. And if you're on the replay, go ahead and put it in the comments. Tell me why. And if you don't, now I know you don't have like a novel of space in the chat, but as much as you can, let me know. I want to know your thought process behind that. And we are going to talk about it as we get through this. We're going to talk about some relatable Reese and how all this relates to what I think she is going through. And yes, would love your thoughts on that. So stick with me here. Aloha, everybody. Great to see you. First, we got to take a look at this thing that I came across. There is a channel on YouTube that does these, menopause just ate the word. Illustrations. I knew it would come back if I just gave it a moment. Buffering illustrations. They do illustrations to explain concepts. And the super cool thing is they did one about Scientology. And why are you so excited about this, Natalie? Geez. Well, because people learn in different ways. For some people, listening. For some people, seeing. For some people, illustrations and this method. That's why I'm excited about it. Because I'm like, yeah, one more way where we can share the truth about Scientology. So take a little look at this.
Some ex-members have described it as a pay-to-play system that pressures people into financial hardship. Scientology has a history of aggressive litigation and intimidation tactics against former members, journalists, and government officials. The fair game policy created by Hubbard once permitted Scientologists to attack or ruin critics by any means necessary. Although the church claims this policy is no longer in effect, many ex-Scientologists report continued harassment.
I mean, I love, and that in it right there is Scientology's fair game policy. I just love that. I think it's a great tool. The boobologist. Where's my aloha?
Aloha.
It's your birthday? No way. Your 53rd birthday? Well, we're taking care of that. How are we going to fit in boobologist? That's a long word, but we're going to try and do it. Y'all ready? Everybody ready to get their birthday game on here? Let's do it. Let's do it. Everybody now.
Happy birthday to you.
Boobologist.
Happy birthday to you.
Boobologist.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
Boobologist, happy birthday to you. And thank you, Nancy. I got to ask Nancy if she'll let me pull up her dancing on the screen one of these days. She'll probably say no, but I can see her here in the back end on StreamYard, and I love, and I hope that you all are doing the same when we do our happy birthdays. Flood that chat, get in the comments on the replay, and let's wish the boobologist a happy birthday and aloha for that super chat as well. That's right. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Okay, now let's move on and talk. We got to talk a little bit about Tom Cruise. There's so much Tom Cruise news at times, but a lot of it I just don't care about. But depending on how many people send me something, I'll cover it or not cover it. But this I found interesting for a multitude of reasons. There is an article out saying there's been an exclusive investigation. You know, it's got to be good, right? It's an exclusive investigation. Exclusive investigation. Tom Cruise's secret health crisis. We revealed the real reason behind his changing face, age 62, $15,000 a day immortality treatments, and why Scientology nut has been single for 13 years. Okay, this is like so massively tabloidy, but I ain't gonna lie, I'm here for it. I'm reading it. It caught my eye. A lot of this, I was like, yeah, no, most of this is whatever. But here's what I found really interesting. Let's get to that point there. Shows Tom Cruise over the years. I mean, he's 62 years old. I mean, sometimes I think I couldn't tell if his face looked a little puffy or that was age or what was happening. Well, apparently that's a big question where people are asking, what has happened to Tom Cruise's face? There's been speculation that grew about plastic surgery, fillers. It's clear the 3-time Golden Globe Award winner and 4-time Oscar nominee, it's such an honor to be nominated, has fans fearing for his well-being as he goes to extremes to preserve his youth. Are they really? Are they fearing for his well-being? Maybe. So this is not new, right? Like actors, actresses. And by the way, I want to be very clear about this. I'll be very clear. I'm not throwing shade at anybody. You want fillers? You want Botox? You want to get a facelift? You do it. You do whatever you want to do. It is your body. You do you, boo. I'm not slamming it at all. Don't think for a minute that if I had the budget to be getting some Botox, that these lines here wouldn't be being taken care of. Although in all honesty, sometimes it's not always the best with my autoimmune issues I have. Sometimes it stimulates my immune system and then I end up getting all my autoimmune stuff. But I don't know, for no hereditary lines there. Maybe I've done it before. I'm not ruling it out. So I'm just saying, whatever, do what you want to do. And I get it. You're an actor. Then they're even comparing him to Cher, some of the things that, she did. They talk a bit about that. And they're talking about how it's not a secret that he's had cosmetic work done. Nothing scandalous about that. Fillers, Botox, whatever. This is especially in Hollywood. This is the one that I thought was kind of funny, though. While Cruise has never admitted to having any procedures, Dr. Gazim Semenoglu, a medical aesthetics practitioner, this person has not treated Tom Cruise. This is their opinion. They told a news outlet that she suspects his puffy face, which, we've talked about, we've seen it, could be a reaction to a fat transfer in which flab from one area of the body, such as the buttocks, is injected into another to create more volume. And I was like, wait a minute. Now I've heard of, the where you suck out the fat. Sorry, that's a gross sound with going with what I'm saying. As it's coming out of my mouth, I'm realizing that. Liposuction, right? But I was not aware that you could put it in other places. And it got me thinking, like, I don't know, can I sell my fat? Can I get my fat sucked out and start selling it to celebrities to inject into their faces? Probably not. It probably has something to do with being your own fat. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just asking, is it a possibility? Because I've got a stock. I've got some fat here I could sell to Tom Cruise that he could then inject into his face. I'm just saying, I don't think he has much of a rear end going on, but you know who does? This girl. So I would willingly take some of that out. Cricket Cinema says his wives don't divorce, they escape. Just saying. I agree with that completely. I totally agree with that. So I don't know if this is a thing. I cannot donate blood. My hemoglobin, ever since I donated a kidney years ago, you love how I work in that humble brag. But my hemoglobin's never been the same. It tends to be the very low end of normal, which is never high enough to donate blood. And I thought this could be my contribution, right? Take my fat. Give it to celebrities. Sell it, though. I feel like they should pay for it. So I don't know. Nurse Lori. Well, I guess so. So he's got ass face. Oh my God, that's really funny. So I'm gonna link it down below. You guys can check that out. You can, do with it what you will. Honestly, I just feel like this could be another income stream. If any of you need, some fat, let me know. It's just me said Tom is operating Thetan level 8. I'm not worried about him. He has the superpower to reverse weather and age. That's right. That's why I think he lives in Clearwater solely so that he can use his operating Thetan powers to move the hurricanes away. I don't doubt Tom Cruise is in his penthouse with his operating Thetan powers, conjuring up the weather and trying to send it all to Aaron Smith Levin's house, who also lives in Clearwater. Send it to Aaron Smith Levin. That'll teach him to do a cutout of me and go protest Scientology. Jesse, good to see you. Don't change anything, Natalie. You're beautiful as you are. Jesse, I adore you. Thank you so much for saying that. I love that. You know how to make a grandma feel nice. I appreciate that. All right, enough Tom Cruise weather manipulation and whatnot. Although, wait, Farrell Cheryl though says, after my dad died, we had 2 hurricanes come through Clearwater. Just saying. Yeah, exactly. Where was he? He's too busy getting his butt injected into his face to be controlling the weather to keep it away from Flag. I'm just saying, he obviously has a role, a job. John Travolta's too busy going up and down the street in front of the Fort Harrison by the protesters. Did y'all know that? Last Friday, there was a sighting of John Travolta driving by the protesters. And in Clearwater, this protest is growing and it looks fun as hell. There's pizza. There's fun people. There are characters who spawn and show up. It's like an entire episode of Dan Walks LA, but in Clearwater, and I'm completely here for all of it. Now, we need to talk about something that is in the news here. So China repatriate more than 1,000 online scam workers rescued from, dang it, I looked up how to pronounce that and I already forgot. It's it's like Myanmar or something weird like that. Nancy, can you give me a phonics in the private chat? For now, we'll call it from this place. But this is crazy, 1,000. And when you read this article, so there was an airlift carrying more than 1,000 Chinese nationals who had worked at online scam centers in that place. This began Thursday after the rescued workers were taken across the border to Thailand and put on chartered flights to China. So Thailand, China, Myanmar. Did Nancy give me how to pronounce that? Myanmar. That doesn't sound right either, Nancy. Myanmar. I know right now Nancy is screaming at the screen telling me, no, it's like this. Okay, so you guys know what it is. Hundreds of thousands of people from Southeast Asia and elsewhere are estimated had to have worked in such centers. Now, we've known about this, right? Online scam centers. But the thing is, Thai officials said recently that as many as 10,000 people may be repatriated from that place from online scam centers. Like, these people are being told, hey, there's this job opportunity. And then they show up, they get their passports taken, and they're forced to work in a scam center. Now, granted, I'm sure not all of them were human trafficked that way, but we're talking about a huge number of people being human trafficked into doing this. And what I appreciate about this story is that it's making the news, they're cracking down on it, and these people are being busted. Because in my mind, it's like, well, okay, I mean, how is that different from what Scientology does in ways, especially when it comes to, hey, we could get you a religious worker visa. Just come on over to Scientology, give us your passport, give us your ID, and then we're just going to force you to work Sea Org member hours, 100 hours a week, no time off, rice and beans if you don't make quotas, punishments if you don't make quotas. It's really not that different. And my hope is that as we discover and people learn more about things like this, like in the scamming center, is they'll realize, hey, look over here. Scientology is kind of doing that as well. I swear they are. So that was my interest. I thought that was interesting. I knew it was happening. I didn't realize it was that many people. I mean, honestly, it's heartbreaking. People who think they're going to go get this new life and then are, trafficked into this. Now, there are scammers who know what they're doing and they just go and do it. And, I'm not talking about them. They can just keep them over there. But that was an eye-opener to me. All right, something else we need to talk about that's happening over in the UK. Apostate Alex covered a story where, how Scientology ideal organizations have their cafes? I've always been curious about this. Like, who works the cafe? How do they stock the cafe? Because As a former Scientologist of 35 years, I just don't see that being anybody's job. And how do you pay for this stuff? Like, they're not good with money. It all goes up to management. I don't get it. But here's the deal in the UK. They were inspected. Let's pull this up. And Apostate Alex shares some of the things that they didn't fix. But this is a different way of like, hey, Scientology, you better make sure your cafes in there are up to par if you're going to have a cafe in a Scientology building. So let's look at this. This is from Apostate Alex over in the UK.
Okay, so we're not going to read all of this. It is a very lengthy report, as you can see, but we're just going to go through the key findings. So, are there any outstanding items from the previous inspection? Yes. So that means that the previous inspection, the council, City of London Corporation told Scientology to do something and they didn't do it. And that item is not labeling PBDS foods. So PPDS foods are foods that are likely to contain allergens. You know, if it's something that contains nuts or something, it has to be clearly labeled so that people who have that allergy don't accidentally consume the food without knowing that that allergen is in it.
So think about this, right? Scientology is not labeling these things as required, but look at it from a Scientology point of view. What allergies? Now, when I was in Scientology, it was 15 years ago. And yes, there were food allergies, but not as, I don't think there was as much awareness about it as there is today. Back in my day, gather around for back in my day. Back in my day, children, you know, my kids went to school with peanuts and all that stuff. But these days, you'll have schools or section of a school that are peanut free. There are some individuals where it's a life-threatening allergy. Like it's life-threatening. So these laws, rules, ordinances, whatever they are, come into place to protect the public. And then when you have a cafe where you have a lot of people coming, these are the requirements. But surprise, surprise, surprise. Is anybody surprised that Scientology feels that they're above that? No, they're totally above that. They don't need to do that. What do you mean? We're not going to mess around with that. We're not going to be labeling things for your petty little food allergies. We're here to make that able more able. You're not allergic to peanuts. It's your body thetans that are allergic to peanuts. You just need to get some auditing and get rid of them. It's totally like how they think. So I'm glad that's being called out. Hey, Moose on the Loose. Jesse, hello. I saw you too. I'm seeing everybody popping in. Look at that. Jen Cass is here. Hello, everybody. Tony, I see you. Yeah, exactly, Queen of Karma. You must be a suppressive person. And trust me, if a Scientologist walks into a Scientology cafe and is like, where's the labels? There's no labels. Is it gluten-free? Does it have peanuts in it? Is there dairy? Their butt will be sent to ethics so fast. Faster than you can say, Xenu, take me now. Boom. You're going to be in there getting security checked. What is your issue? Why are you causing problems? Why are you bringing up things like laws and rules? Scientology is above the law. That is what they think. We know it is. We know it's totally what they think. They've been saying it for years. They don't try to hide it. Let's look at a clip. In fact, is this a clip or are we going to watch? Yes, from Anonymous Lens. This is an eye-opener. This video is the connection between Scientology and the VA, which is Veteran Affairs for anybody who might be outside the country. And ooh, this is some hard truth here. Watch this. Let me pull this up, you guys. Check this out. And for those who are listening, it says a betrayal of trust. This is the connection between Scientology and the VA.
In 2009, the U.S. Department of Defense made a controversial decision. They partnered with the Church of Scientology to study the Hubbard method as a treatment for Gulf War syndrome, a debilitating condition affecting over 200,000 veterans. The government allocated over $600,000 to this project, raising serious concerns about ethics, science, and accountability.
$600,000. Let that sink in. What could they actually have done with $600,000? They could definitely make those signs in the UK pointing out the allergies, just saying like, there's so much more that could be done. And in the grand scheme of things, that might not seem like a huge amount of money when it comes to our government spending, but $600,000 can do a lot of good when it's not being given to Scientology.
The Hubbard method claims to detoxify the body using extreme measures, saunas, niacin megadoses, and intense exercise. Developed by Scientology's founder, this method lacks scientific validation and is deeply rooted in the cult's unorthodox ideology. So why would the US government endorse such a program? Critics suggest it's a dangerous gamble with veterans' health.
Absolutely. Now, if you really want to know the nitty gritty and get into the why, you're going to have to go to Anonymous Lens and watch it. I don't want to give it all away. I'm going to link it down below. Check it out. I love that that got done. It's all the different ways that people are coming forward and raising awareness about Scientology and the abusive practices and their ties and tentacles into the government and all those things. I'll welcome it. Please, please. Bravo. Keep doing it. Keep shining that light. Absolutely. Right? A cute pumpkin clodhopper. You could do a lot with $600,000 on your compound. Absolutely. I could do a lot with $600,000. Oh, fluffy cloud top. We can see you. Yeah, defunct. Check it out. Check it out. That's Anonymous Lens. After the video, I'm going to link everything down below so you can go check it all out. Okay, now we got to go to the blue buildings. Oh, girl. This one, just when you think you've seen everything. This is from MD Media. I think, is this from his Faces of Scientology? This is from Faces of Scientology. So he's got 2 YouTube channels, MD Media 18 and then Faces of Scientology. And on Faces of Scientology, he goes and he takes video. So he's not streaming. So the video is incredibly clear over at the blue buildings. And he came upon these Scientologists who I'm pretty positive I know who they are. I think we're going to look at the video. I think they're members of the Estate Project Force. These are Sea Org members in training. The uniform gives it away a little bit. The reflective vest, that's a new touch for sure. But what makes me think they're the Estates Project Force? Well, let's look at the video and I will tell you, and wait till you see what happens, what their reaction is to this camera. And all I can do is yell at my screen and be like, what are you doing? You're making yourselves look so much more culty. What are you doing? But you know what? That's what they do. So watch this. This is one of them. I think he is an Estates Project Force person. And again, the vests, those are new. Those are new. Back in my day when I was in the Sea Org, nobody was really wearing that. So, you know, leaf blowing. Look at that busted up thing over there. Scientology got rid of most of the planters. They need to get rid of that one too. Why would you get rid of all of them except that busted up one? So then Matthew's going down with his camera, and then the other guy who he passed suddenly realizes what's happening and he starts running. Now, number one, members of the Estate Project Force have to run everywhere. They have to run everywhere. So at first I'm like, are they running because they're Estate Project Force people and to go they have to run? Or are they running because like Godzilla is coming? Was there a zombie I didn't see? Why are you running? What are you taking off from? It's a camera, not a weapon. But they go running. But again, on the Estate Project Force, which is boot camp for Sea Org members, you have to run everywhere. So let's watch this play out. Guy goes running back and says something to them, and they immediately start packing up. So they were told what to do. That lady's running. These guys are running. They were told what to do. They're taking off running. Like, what's happening?
Run, everybody. So
now when they get across the street, they do stop running.
guys, come on.
And then there's Scientology security on a bike.
Come on, really? There's no need to run.
I mean, they really just scattered. They just took off. because they saw a camera. And you'll notice Scientology public, the everyday public who are not staff members or Sea Org members, sometimes they'll even talk to somebody who's live streaming, right? Or they will leave, but sometimes they will stay. You will notice that Sea Organization members always take off and get away from there because they've been told to do that. Scientology does not want these people identified. There are people who might be like, wait a minute, my cousin went to America for a job. Whoa, look at him running across there. What's happening? Or people who've been in the Sea Organization for a long time. And how are they not seeing that this just looks really culty? The real life school kind of reminds me of cockroaches when you turn on the lights. Yeah. And what kind of message are you sending to these up and coming Sea Organization members about people with cameras or the public? Like, why do they have to run away like that? This was shocking to me. And I know it shouldn't be shocking, but it still is. And I think what shocks me about this behavior is how does not Scientology, in fact, you know what? Let's wake up OSA and just ask them. I just got to ask you, David Miscavige, wake up your people. It's Tuesday, so we can be loud. Office of Special Affairs. Do you see how this looks? It's giving cult. It's giving like I'm training to run away from my captors. Something else you might want to think about. You make them run everywhere. They're going to get good at it. They're going to be able to outrun your guards. Watch tomorrow. They're like, nobody runs anywhere. There's no more exercise. There's no more running. We don't want y'all taking off. It is such a bad look. Why not casually stroll back? Maybe you don't want to be videotaped. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with moving away from a camera if you don't want to be videotaped on a public street. That's fine. It's the running that makes it look weird. It does. Asen says the Temu quality of uniform is still going strong. I feel sorry for them, to be honest. Truly, and do. And remember, especially people new to the Sea Organization, they have no idea. They have no idea what they're getting into. And many everyday Scientologists who are not staff members or Sea Organization members, they have no clue about a lot of the abuses. They've had things happen to them. They think they're the only one. That is something repeated over and over again when people leave Scientology. I thought I was the only one that happened to. I thought I was the only one who thought that way. And that, in my mind, is the importance of sharing our stories as former Scientologists. So many under the radar, or even people in a different high control group might go, whoa, wait a minute, that's sus. And then do something about it and take steps to be able to get out of there. Yeah, and SPTV fan, can you imagine what these people are being told? That is exactly where my brain goes. What are you being told? And like, how does this not feel weird to you? Are we going to run every time? Are they going to be out in public, see a cell phone and run, even if they're not being videoed? I don't know. The whole thing is strange and weird. Almost not as weird, though, as this Danny Masterson documentary. Okay, show of hands. Who else is excited about this? A documentary that Alex Gibney is doing got the go-ahead. Let's look at this. This is a clip from Growing Up in Scientology where he shared this. Let's take a look.
It is my privilege and my honor to be the first one to announce to all of you that the Alex Gibney Danny Masterson documentary is officially a go. It is.
And remember, Alex Gibney did Going Clear.
Is moving forward. It is greenlit. It is happening. It is getting ready to go into production. And you can see from the things that have been said and the things that have been explained that the Danny Masterson, the entire Danny Masterson affair, all of his crimes, all of the cover-up, all of this, and the report that was made public this week, there's a common thread throughout all of this of Scientology systemically violating the California Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act. And in my opinion, it would be very reasonable to expect that the Alex Gibney, Danny Masterson documentary is going to lean into. It's not just Danny Masterson. It's not just Profile of a Predator. How did Danny Masterson become who he is? No, remember, guys, Alex Gibney is the one who did the Going Clear documentary. Alex Gibney knows his Scientology.
That is the piece that I find very exciting. And I see your show of hands. Thank you so much for that. I'm glad you guys are excited too, because it's so much more than about Danny Masterson and what he did. This is a man, Alex Gibney is somebody, again, who did the documentary Going Clear. So he has all this background information on Scientology, the terminology, things are going to make more sense to him. I feel like this has the potential of being one of the best documentaries done and exposing Scientology through the story of Danny Masterson. I think it checks so many boxes. I'm glad you guys are excited as well. I know I really am. Let's finish watching this.
He's jumping back into the pool on this one. Okay. And so I do believe that it is reasonable to expect that the Alex Gibney, Danny Masterson documentary is going to be hopefully leaning into this angle of all of the various ways in which Scientology systemically systemically and systematically violates the California Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act. And guys, this is just an angle of attack that Scientology cannot defend against, in my humble layman's opinion. This is an angle or a vector of attack that Scientology cannot defend against.
Okay, is you gonna see?
I mean, how would they? They're going to try. They're going to try. All they can do probably is attack the people who are creating it, attack the people who are participating. What are they going to do? Nothing effective. Office of Special Affairs. It's like a tsunami is just coming for the cultiness, right? The water has receded. We talked about this the other day. You see all the fish flopping in the sand. Look out in the horizon. The tsunami of truth is coming for you. Office of Special Affairs, Scientology, David Miscavige. Now would be a good time, Office of Special Affairs, if you have doubts, which I know you do. We all had them when we were in the Sea Organization. It's not because you have Overton withholds. Those doubts are that's your brain's way of saying, hey, red flag, red flag. That twisted feeling in your gut that makes you want to feel like you're going to throw up, your inability to sleep, all that anxiety is not because you're not doing your job. It's because you're in a cult that's enforcing some very serious mind control and brainwashing on you. And I know when I was in Scientology, I'd have been like, what? No, I'm a free thinker. That's the whole idea in Scientology. It makes it so that we can just think for ourselves. L. Ron Hubbard says, think for yourself. Yeah, in the beginning, until you can't anymore. And think about the actions that you take part in on a daily basis. Are those actions that are really creating a world without insanity, without war, which are the aims of Scientology? Are those things playing out? Marilyn Honig, Coffee Cult and Craft says, I'm happy this documentary is going through. Yes, me too. I am so excited about it. I can't even barely stand it. Like beyond. Anybody want to get the hotline? I'm afraid to answer. Life After a Cult. This is Natalie. How can I help you? Okay. You think you might be in a cult? It started out fun, but now you can't stop and they have control over your life. Okay. Talk to me. Take a deep breath. We'll get to the bottom of this. Are there any strict rules that you have to follow? Okay. Weird, arbitrary rules that make no sense. That plays. What happens if you don't follow them? Everybody gets mad at you. Okay, so it sounds like a group thing. Do they use mind games to manipulate? Constantly. Okay. They give you puzzles and riddles that make no sense. And if you don't follow, what happens if you don't solve them? You get locked in? Are they physically trapping you? You literally cannot leave until you figure out the clues. Sometimes you get out, but you just go right back in. Okay, that's concerning. Is there a charismatic leader that you all worship? Okay, so a mysterious voice tells you what to do, like an all-knowing entity. They control everything. Do they take your money? So much money. Okay. And you keep giving them more and more. You don't know why. Yeah, that happens. So you escape, but you go back. Well, I mean, this happened in Scientology a lot. Sometimes people would escape and get away and then be convinced to come back and leave properly. That's a big red flag. Are they isolating you from your family? Kinda. You don't see your friends anymore? Because you're always in a room solving puzzles with strangers? What? Oh, wait, just to clarify, what is this group called? Trap, the ultimate escape room experience. Ma'am, you're just addicted to escape rooms. Yeah, that's not a cult. That's just a very expensive recreational activity with a deeply unnecessary amount of stress. Yes, why I don't do it. I'm spending my life trying to calm my nervous system down, not find ways to jack it up. Yeah, no. But I know they locked you in the room, but you literally pay them to trap you. The leader, the guy with the microphone watching you from a security camera and laughing every time you fail at a basic math problem. Yeah. Do you feel an overwhelming need to go back? That's frustrating. Yeah, I know it's a scam. If you feel trapped, it can also be a lot of fun. But you feel you need to beat the next one. Okay. Yeah, that's an addiction, not indoctrination. Try Sudoku. Just something more chill. I'm just saying you're not in a cult. Now, not unless your next escape room is called the Church of Eternal Enigma and requires a lifetime vow of puzzle servitude. Then you might be in trouble. No, you don't need an intervention. Unless you're spending all your money on it, then maybe you do. No, I'm glad I could help. Absolutely. Go outside, touch some grass before they drag you back into the Pharaoh's Tomb Part 2. Oh, it's the Pharaoh's Revenge. Yeah. All right. Yeah, well, you have a cult-free day. Another one lost to the puzzle overlords. At least it's better than an MLM, I guess, right? Yeah, I've never done an escape room because, again, to my point, I'm like not trying to jack myself up like that. I've spent a lifetime in fight or flight being in Scientology. Trust me when I tell you, the last thing I want to do is be locked in a room with a pressure that I need to escape. I get anxiety going to the airport or bus station because I'm like, are they coming after me? It's gotten a lot better. It's been 15 years, but until you've been chased down by your cult. But you know what? We're here. We're here for it. All right, let's look at where we at here. I am going to make a couple changes here. We have some things we need to talk about. I'm going to show you a couple of clips. Let's talk about a Relatable Reese update. I'm going to share a couple clips. And I think these clips, this video, she did a video last night. I'm going to try and update you guys for those that might not have seen it or are not familiar with her story. This is someone who's working through complex emotions as they happen. That's what you see here on YouTube. And that's relatable, I think, for anyone dealing with grief or regret or even personal growth. Healing is messy. It's non-linear. That's something that I've come to learn. It's okay to have conflicting thoughts and emotions at the same time. It's all part of it. And we're seeing it all play out in real time with her videos, through what she shares with her audience. And her latest video, I feel, had a lot of acknowledging some past mistakes and areas for growth and some self-reflection. And what I hope to bring to this conversation is an understanding too, from the viewpoint of a former Scientologist, a former cult member. And I think a lot of you will be able to relate to this as well. And I've got some good questions for you too. So let's first look at this clip. Owning mistakes. How do we learn? Right? Are we our own worst enemy?
People who want to come out and say like, oh, Reese said horrible things to me, or yeah, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. I've said horrible things to myself. I promise you, I'm more my enemy than anybody. I'm trying to work on that. And I'm not sitting here saying like, forgive me because I'm a mess in progress. Don't forgive me. That's not the point. Keep making hate videos or do it, speak your truth wherever you want to speak it. I'm not mocking that or making fun of it. But I was just thinking about that as far as my Scientology past. We are not good people. It doesn't surprise me at all that people would say Reese is not a good person.
Now, I would push back on that a little bit. I wouldn't say that all Scientologists are not good people. There's some really good people in Scientology. I think that people in Scientology, depending on how long you've been in and what your experience is you become nurtured, especially growing up in Scientology. She completely grew up in Scientology. And I want to be clear, none of this is an excuse for bad behavior for any of us, regardless of our past, what our trauma is. But it does help people and helps ourselves understand how we got there. And if we understand how we got there, it opens the door to a path on how we can get out of that. And in watching her video last night, that a lot of that self-reflection really got me thinking about this. I'm going to show you, we're going to look at another clip, but think about it, right? Coming out of high control environments like cults or abusive relationships, that can often leave people with behaviors they don't even realize that they've carried forward. I'm out of Scientology 15 years and I'm still spotting some of those things. Reese has been out for 2 years. There's a lot to unpack and work through and be able to hopefully do better. But it starts with the realization of recognizing the actions, recognizing the need for change. But growing up in a cult like Scientology can create a lot of hyper independence where you're overly independent. This is something that I've struggled with. Marilyn Honig, exactly. People are neither all good or all bad. And I think this is kind of what we're seeing here. And I think there's so much to learn by watching what she's talking about and going through, because that's kind of the whole thing in a nutshell. There's so much growing up in Scientology, a distrust in friendships. Why? Because we ratted on each other. We wrote knowledge reports on each other. Not all of us, but that's the environment. That's what's encouraged. It's very much a snitch culture. Normalizing abuse. When I got my daughter back from Scientology, when she was in Florida training, she had completely normalized abuse. She had normalized being deprived food, being deprived of sleep, being made to clean bathrooms because you didn't meet quotas as a form of punishment. She had completely normalized this in less than a year. That's all it took. In less than a year. Think about growing up that way. Farrell Cheryl says, my family weren't bad. They were ethical. But and then it kind of cuts off there. But yes, and Farrell Cheryl, her father was a Scientologist and her mom wasn't a Scientologist, but there were major issues that she had with her mom as well. So you don't have to have grown up in a cult to have this effect where you become hyper independent, you become distrustful, you don't recognize and appreciate or value friendships, which is something that she talks about. I really appreciate her sharing this and that level of vulnerability. And I feel like that's what Relatable Reese, that's what her channel has been about. And you can love her, you can hate her, you can be somewhere in between, but there is a message there. And this is something that we're seeing unfold in real time as her eyes are opening up to this. Now, therapy can unravel these conditional behaviors, but it's a long process. And she even said in her video, she doesn't really talk to her therapist about Scientology specifically. I think she's going to now based on what she said. But when you are raised in conditional relationships like cults, it's hard to understand genuine friendships. And many of you probably have some real genuine friendships and you're thinking, I could never do that to my friends. Yeah, that's good. But coming from, and again, this is not an excuse for the behavior. My hope is to bring an understanding, because if we can understand it, we can figure out how to change it. And even though maybe most of us didn't go this route, there's a level of being able to relate to it and see pieces of ourselves in it. And if it upsets you to an extreme level, then I think maybe do a little bit of self-reflecting there, because what is it stirring up? We don't tend to be stirred up by things that, we have no connection or way we can relate to. It's just these behaviors are magnified when you've been in you've come out of abuse, a high control group, or a cult. Learning to value friendships, just that, and treat people well. It's not automatic. That's a skill that takes effort when it was never nurtured in you. Again, not an excuse. I'm not making excuses for her behavior, for my behavior, for anybody's behavior who's been in a cult. But it helps us understand it. And if we understand it and you see growth, and you see someone healing and moving through that and learning to value friendships, then how many people can that help who might be in a similar situation? Often I felt like we had to relearn how to be human in a way that we were not allowed to before. We were not allowed to have compassion or empathy. It was drilled out of us as children. As children. That's something that needs to be nurtured. And it's really easy to wallow in guilt when we realize how we've hurt others by staying stuck in shame. But that doesn't fix anything. The key is accountability and growth, not just apologizing and making meaningful changes in how we treat ourselves and others. But making those changes. You can apologize, but you have to make those changes. That's where that growth comes from, but it starts with unpacking it. Marilyn says, in my cult also, friendship was conditional and transactional. Exactly. It's so that way in Scientology. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, even in a course room for Scientology. Hey, I'll give you a star. I'll give you a checkout on this if you do that. And that's part of getting through your course. But everything becomes transactional in Scientology. You belong to a group, your church, and I say that with air quotes, who is completely of the mindset of what have you done for me lately? So let's take a look at another clip, and I want to talk about this. Give this a listen.
Because I really am hard on myself about that. There are people that I have treated poorly since I started, way before I started a YouTube channel, but let's address that now. Since I started a YouTube channel, have I felt, Bo Beats, have you felt the need to reach out to any of the good people that you heard? Over and over, especially over the last couple of weeks? Yes. But I don't want to, because I'm afraid they're just going to put the screenshots up and go, see, how convenient. No. I'm not going to be made fun of for trying to reach out and say, hey, I would like to talk to you. Not only would I like to apologize, but like, I'd like to actually have a conversation with you. I guess I just have to consider that let sleeping dogs lie kind of a thing. Like, I don't think they want to talk to me. So it's okay. And I'm not saying this so that people will not say bad things about me. By all means, continue to say bad things, because I really am.
There's a whole conversation, stuff that she shared about being her own worst enemy, which I think a lot of times, a lot of us can relate to that in many ways. We're often our own worst enemies. And here you have someone who this is all playing out in real time on the internet. So you've also got all the internet culture and the pressure to be perfect, the pressure to, am I going to be judged for this? And being a public figure on YouTube means every flaw is magnified, and people are eager to judge. It's human nature. No one is all good or all bad. That's that black and white thinking. And that's how we were made to think in Scientology. That's how high control groups work. We're complex, and our past mistakes don't define our entire existence. The internet loves to reduce people to villains or heroes, but real life doesn't work that way. It's not always you're a villain, you're a hero. We're all somewhere in between. I've been the hero. I've been the villain. I thought I was the hero, but to somebody else, I was the villain, right? What is the point of view that somebody has? How are you looking at it? But when we get into trying to put people into boxes of villain and hero without seeing the complexities, I think we miss the opportunity to learn from what's happening here. And it's not just that, it's entertaining to watch because it's a train wreck in real time, right? Or work in progress, as she even says. It is. I'm not going to knock anybody for watching for the entertainment value at all. But I think there's a deeper lesson and meaning here that I know I'm relating to, and I think that a lot of us can. Stay says not trying isn't accountability. Sorry, but you have to do the uncomfortable things in order to grow. Absolutely. I agree. And I think that was an uncomfortable video to do and to share the things that she shared, especially about being her own worst enemy. Let's look at another clip here.
But I'm telling you right now, if people are out there saying Reese is a piece of shit, believe them.
And there's a little bit of spicy language if you got kids in the car.
This isn't a tactic. This isn't a con. Believe them. Because I was a piece of shit to myself. Of course I was a piece of shit to other people.
And that right there, I think, is an important lesson too. When we mistreat ourselves, of course we're going to mistreat other people. It starts with us. And that's something I left Scientology 15 years ago, and there's things I still continue to learn about myself. And one thing my relationship with my Tony helped me see was how to love myself, that I can love myself, that I should love myself. Even, I met him 2 years after Scientology, and it took me years, I think, to learn that lesson, that how I speak to myself has everything to do with how I'm going to treat other people or how I see the world, right? If I think I'm a total piece of crap and I speak down to myself all the time and I'm negative about myself, now there's this lens I'm looking through the world of this negative lens, and it transfers over. But when you can recognize that, that's what happened for me, was like, wow, why am I being my own worst enemy? I can recognize where I need to do better by acknowledging, okay, that was a situation. I didn't show up as my best self there. I did not. How do I handle that? I'm 15 years out of Scientology. She's 2 years out of Scientology. Not an excuse for mistreating anyone. Queen of Karma. Yes, black and white thinking is hard to get away from when you were raised with it. Yes. And you don't have to have grown up in a cult to have black and white thinking. I fairly recently realized this because I see it across the internet a lot. That's right, Feral Cheryl. Energy flows where your focus goes. So if you're always putting yourself down, then how are you going to take care? You don't value yourself enough to take care of yourself, then is what can end up happening. And I had times in my life where that's what was happening. I didn't value myself enough. I was beating myself up so bad because I didn't understand a lot of what I went through in Scientology. I hadn't yet unpacked it. And again, that doesn't excuse bad behavior. I showed up in ways that today I would never show up that way. But I've been out of Scientology for 15 years, and I am constantly trying to work on myself and learn and do better. And when we talk about things like Relatable Reese and what she is going through, that's also an opportunity. It's a learning opportunity for all of us. And not many people would share it all like that on the internet. Let's finish watching that clip.
Whole life, I have been telling me I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, you're so uneducated, you're not attractive, you're fat, you're a size 14. Nobody's going to be attracted to that. Biggin. Like, I've been doing that to me. That's how I talk to me. How do you think I'm going to treat other people? Well, I don't talk to me that way anymore. And I'm really in therapy about that. And I'm here trying to build myself up and be a better person. And then you turn around and you're better to other people. But I'm telling you right now, if people are...
I think a lot too, and I saw a couple comments too, she might need a break from YouTube, maybe, but she also seems to process a lot on YouTube. And that encouragement is helpful, but the, people who disagree or, are not a fan are gonna have something to say about it too. It's not necessarily for everyone, but this is a way that she does seem to be processing and sharing raw, unfiltered emotions, and that can be cathartic. But it also opens the door for misinterpretation, for judgment and scrutiny. And again, that is human nature. We're a judgy people, right? I don't know how the aliens are doing with all of it, but as humans, it's kind of built into us. It's something that we work on to not be that way so much. And the internet often weaponizes honesty, but authenticity still matters. So how you're being honest, trying to be authentic, but at the same time, that can be very judged as well. So it's just, it can be such a mess. And I think that's what we've seen. It's okay to take breaks, set boundaries, and prioritize self-care over public perception, not just for the creator, or in this case, Relatable Reese, but even for the audience, even for people who might need to reset if you've been too emotionally invested and then come back to it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And as we talk about it too, we don't all have the same experience. We have shared experiences coming out of Scientology, but we not all the same experience. Some are actually quite different. So recognizing these patterns of tolerating abuse or treating others poorly is a learned behavior when you come from a high control group, or like in Scientology. But again, Reese's upbringing was different. My mom was neglectful because of all the time and energy she put into Scientology. But I wouldn't qualify what my mom did or didn't do as abusive. My mom was doing the best she could do with what she had. This is what she thought was a solution. She didn't get us into Scientology because she thought it would hurt us or had any type of foresight that we'd be 35 years in a human trafficking cult and the chaos it would cause in our lives and the long-term damage it would cause. Had she known that, she never would have done it. But she didn't know. So how do I fault her for that? Took us 35 years. I was, what was that? 40 when I left Scientology. I was well into adulthood. I could have left at any of those times. Now, yeah, mind control and all that, but I hadn't yet learned those lessons. Sandy McKenna says you can't undo the past, but you can outgrow it. And I completely agree with that statement. And that is my hope. And I think that's how we start to break the cycle of unhealthy relationships. If you've been raised in dysfunction, it's easy to gravitate toward familiar pain rather than healthy relationships. If that's what you're used to, if you are used to being mistreated, you will gravitate towards being mistreated. It's familiar. It feels secure. I learned that watching Jenna Miscavige did an interview with Tim Fletcher on Tim Fletcher's channel and talked a bit about that, on how we will gravitate, that even though we can know in our sane minds logically, I don't want to live like this, I don't want this, but we slip back in and gravitate towards something or that's familiar. And my opinion, I am not a psychologist or a therapist. Okay. I'm a middle-aged woman on the internet with some strong opinions. That's all you're getting here. So take it all in. Sandy McKenna says your actions write the story, not your intentions. I agree. I very much agree with that. And there's so much of a learning opportunity here. And I think that one piece in recognizing that we gravitate towards familiar pain and breaking that cycle starts with being able to recognize it and realize that we deserve better. Sometimes people do things that are really crappy and mistreat people because they don't think they deserve it. They don't think they deserve that love. And let me tell you, a lot of people coming out of Scientology feel that way. They've done things they aren't proud of, especially in the Sea organization. And to heal and move beyond that, no one, in most cases, not all, because some people are just a-holes, but in most cases, we feel horrible about it. And you're either going to get trapped in that shame or grow from it. Nancy says, please do not speak children's names in this chat. Thanks, Nancy. So there is so much to unpack. And often the best thing to do is pause, reflect, and heal before jumping into another relationship. I think we all want that for, I wasn't the only one yelling at my television. And it sounds too, based on what I saw, based on what she's saying in her video, that is her plan. Giving ourselves grace is such a big part of that. We got to give ourselves grace. I feel like learn to do that before we can even learn to do it with other people. And no one unlearns trauma overnight. That's the thing. Healing, it's a journey. It's not like this single moment of realization. But let me tell you something about Scientology. They indoctrinated us to believe that it is. Oh, I had this realization about communication. Therefore, I'm completely changed. I won't be doing that again. And then you do it again. Because it takes more than just the realization that it's an issue. You got to work through it. You need other tools. And that is something Scientology never gave us. Tools. They gave us false tools. The tools that were helpful are natural truths that you could get from anywhere else for free. Saved by Grace says, I love Reese. Her vulnerability is refreshing. She doesn't put on airs. She's real and shares her scars. And that really helps people to know they are not alone in their own battle. I agree. I think that is what people find very helpful. Joe Virus says, learning to love yourself before you can love another is very important. So you can bring 100% to the relationship. You have to fall in love with yourself. And that, give me a minute. I'm trying not to cry because I don't want to make this about me, but I'm going to make it about me. I had to learn that. Okay, fine. I'm going to cry. Where's my tissue? I had to learn to love myself. And I was fortunate enough to have family, new friends, and a man who worshiped the ground I walked on, who showed me that how to love myself, that I was deserving of it. You know, I was 2 years out of Scientology. I was where Reese is now in ways when I met my Tony. And there are other things that I did to work through those things and make it better for myself. But he was a huge part of that. And without him, I realized that I have to keep doing that. I have to keep doing that work. Thank you, Joe Virus. Let's cry it out. Everybody just grab the damn tissue. Let's just do this. But I had to learn that. He mirrored that for me. Thank you, Mock. Keep releasing. Let it out. He helped me see and understand that. And then there were other things that I did too, other tools that I learned, other help that I got. It wasn't just one thing. He was just a big part of that because he kept mirroring to me how much he loved me. And I remember thinking, what's wrong with this guy? Tony Hoban, another reason we all love Tony. So true. And there was for a while, I was like, what's wrong with him? How can he possibly love me that much? How does he not see the monster? And the truth is, that monster part of me was this big. But who I really was this big of not being that way. This is who I really was. It was never encouraged or nurtured. And he just kept mirroring that and taking care of me in ways that were so kind. I mean, little things, making a bubble bath, turning me on to the fact that I can take a bubble bath and eat snacks at the same time. little tiny ways of treating myself. But it took a lot of work. Claudia says, once upon a time, I believed in second chances. The only time it was successful was when I forgave myself. Exactly. And I think that is huge. That is the huge part of this, is forgiving ourselves, not beating ourselves up anymore, and having a willingness to try to right the wrongs that we did. I know a lot of people. Hey, Fuzzy Pink Handcuffs, read your shirt. Yeah. I slapped Weezer. It's from Still Magnolias. I could slap Weezer right now. I could use a good slap in Weezer. But we learn these things. And I think this is what she's learning. Self-compassion is just as important as accountability. That's my opinion. You do not have to believe that. Moving forward can mean accepting where you've been, learning from it, and working to be better. And I think Reese is doing this in real time. And again, it's going to be up and down. It's not going to be, oh, I realized this and now I'm perfect. Aloha, Kelly Copter. it takes work. I remember those early times, and then feeling like when you start realizing what a crap person you were, that you mistreated people in the name of, or that was what your instincts were to do to survive what you had to survive. But then you leave that situation, you leave Scientology, but it doesn't mean you're healed. That's right, Sandy McKenna. Your past mistakes are just chapters, not the whole book. These are chapters. These will be chapters in her life. And my hope for her is there's going to be so much more. And she is going to learn to love herself, and she is going to learn to value friendships and other relationships so that we show up better. It's something so many of us have to go through when you weren't nurtured that way. And if you went through life and you've always treated people with respect, and you've always valued your friendships, and you've always shown up in a way that didn't hurt anybody, God bless you. That's awesome. That's not the case for many of us. Joe Virus says, you have a very magnetic energy and personality to match. We're all here because we can really feel your humanity and love for life. I appreciate that, Joe Virus. Thank you. I'm learning, it's one step, but it doesn't change overnight. And as much as on one hand, I'm like, hey, if you need a break from YouTube, then you should take it. There's another part of me that's like, no, let's do this. Talk about it in therapy, share it with us, because I think it's an opportunity for a lot of people to see her growth as to show that it can happen. Cheryl says, Natalie's authentic. She's genuine, and everyone can see and feel that. Oh, I appreciate that, Cheryl. But again, I would like to say, set the bar low. I mess some stuff up too, but I can look back and see the point. It was a gradual, it wasn't a light switch. And I think that is something I hope that Relatable Reese recognizes. It was not a light switch. It was a recognition that I was showing up in a way that was not helpful in my relationships. And then I had to learn tools to deal with all the baggage that I brought. How can I process this? How can I then show up for other people? And it took a lot. And it's still something that I feel like I'm working on. And I think that's the biggest reason why I tend on my channel to really kind of lean into, and everybody doesn't have to come along with me and agree that we should hold space for people. You don't have to forgive anybody you don't want to forgive. You can hate who you want to hate. But for my healing, it's almost selfish that if I lean into leaving the door open for forgiveness and change, it helps me, because being angry and upset, that's exhausting, especially when I'm not living her life. I'm not at her house. I shouldn't be on an emotional roller coaster. But sometimes we are, because we care. Fuzzy Peak handcuffs. Most houses are made of glass, including mine. So I try not to throw stones. Yeah, we do try that, but we will. I will at times, even though that's something I work hard on. I still do it from time to time. I think that's just part of that human nature. I'm not perfect, nor do I claim to be. I don't have it all figured out. I still half the time feel like a hot mess in a dress, except I'm not in a dress. Joe Virus, why do we remember our mistakes louder in our heads than our greatest moments? That is the $1 million question. And when you start recognizing the harm that you've done to other people, that can be incredibly shameful. And you start putting that on yourself. Becky says, Natalie, sometimes feeling like you're responsible for defending and protecting everyone is just as damaging. Yeah, and I don't feel like I'm responsible for defending or protecting anybody. This is my opinion. These are things I like to talk about on my channel, especially when it comes to healing from a cult. You guys can do whatever you want to do. I find it fascinating. Mary Shahane says, healing is never selfish. That's a really good point. Because let's be real, right? Our own healing is going to be good for other people. Me taking the time to heal is better for my family. Marilyn Honig says, hate is a strong word and emotion. I try to stay away from it. Same thing. I try my best to get to a point where, I've told you guys, for me, forgiveness means taking your hand off the throat of another person And I learned that from reading a book called The Shack. And I'll never forget, I was sitting on an airplane when I read it, and I read it over and over and over again, that part, that it's taking your hand off the other person's neck. Doesn't mean we're all good. It's okay. It could be. It could mean that, right? Little things. Maybe they're not that big a deal. Professor Furberger says you only hurt yourself if you hate others. I agree. That's why there's that saying. It's like you drink the poison and you expect it to affect somebody else. That is not good. It takes a lot of energy to have those hold on to emotions of angers and strong feelings of hate. And I got to a point in my life where I'm like, I don't have the energy for that. There's got to be a better way. And then I started to recognize that other people's actions and how they show up really doesn't have much to do with me, nothing to do with me. Even if they're saying something about me that's negative. And this is how I deal with trolls on the internet. And why a lot of it is I don't ever feel a need to address it because it's going to happen. Trolls on the internet exist. I also talk about a human trafficking cult, and they have their own brand of trolls. But it doesn't have anything to do with me. Your opinion of me, good or bad, either way, that's your opinion, right? It doesn't necessarily change how I feel or how I'm looking at myself, right? Unless I'm like really being a butthole and need to like reflect and work through that. Becky says, I forgive. I'll let go of the anger for me. Yeah. And sometimes to some, it might seem like, oh, you're defending this person or letting that go or giving them a pass. No, again, these are just my opinions here on my YouTube channel. Y'all get to think and feel however you want to think and feel. I find it fascinating to watch somebody go through this process. And I am thankful for that because I feel like I learn as well when these things are talked about as they're gone through. Hunter Bay says, I think the internet is going to do more damage to Reese. Too many opinions, and she hasn't learned to leave it. The internet is not therapy. Absolutely. That's why I was saying it could be taking a break, could be a good thing. But it has to be up to that person. But I hear you. Winston Smith, what people tell you about you is of no importance. What you tell yourself is. Yes. I have come to learn that. And more often than not, I feel that we're telling ourselves things that are negative about ourselves. And that's just no way to start the day. And I have really tried to work at that because the thing that I realized for me is that person who was my cheerleader, who told me every day how loved I was, who showed me, who hugged me, who was my biggest cheerleader. You can do this. You can do anything. It's gone. But somehow all of those feelings and that love is not. I still feel it. I still hear him. You can do it. You can do anything. Good job. I would finish a show and go talk to him about it. And I miss that. But somehow I still feel it. I still feel the encouragement. I can still hear him encouraging me. He might be physically gone, but that love and that encouragement is not. And in part because I started to believe it for myself. And I started to show up for myself in that way. Taking care of myself. Getting out of bed. Getting back to doing what I love, which is like being here on YouTube, other things, being with my family, friends, getting back to what do I want to do in life and getting back to that. And I thought, as long as I continue to do that and show up for myself, I'm better to show up for other people. But it took a lot to learn that. Again, I am 15 years out of Scientology and still working on stuff. Joe Virus says, Reese's growth is very noticeable, and I miss those awestruck feelings growing up. She's catching up to those for us that are never ends. That's right. Never in Scientology, but all in on ending this cult. I agree. Sandy says, healing isn't a destination. It's learning to dance in the wreckage. God, That's so true. That's so true. And it's hard to admit when, like, yeah, I was a crap person. You know, when I first met Reese, well, I've never met her in person, but when we first started doing content and we were talking, there's a couple things I wanted to communicate to her. And one was that I was not a fan of Tommy, and I told her why. And I said, I'm not bringing this up again. Your choice is your choice. I just want you to know, where I'm at with it, just because I don't know, it felt like it would be weird if I didn't tell her. And I told her too. I'm like, hey, I talk crap about you at times. And I know you talk crap about me. That's okay. Why don't we just lay that down? And we know better, we do better. And that is so freeing too. It's like there's a forgiveness there, and like, okay, right? Let's acknowledge this, but how can we move forward from it? And that's what I'm hoping that she can do. And we're all human, and we fall into these patterns of behavior sometimes, which aren't the best, where we're judgmental and we're hateful and we're critical. And we say things about other people. We all do it. That we all do it doesn't make it okay. I think it just kind of maybe reminds us that maybe we just shouldn't be so judgmental about it, kind of a thing, right? Doesn't mean it's okay, but we all do it at some time or another. And if you never have, God bless you. That's you're a much better person than I am in that way. Queen of Karma says, I forgive people who severely hurt me or my family in silence. Maybe I'm a bit spiteful. There's something to be said for that too, is if you can't help, then maybe you don't hurt. And maybe in a way your silence is that way, right? Taking your hand off that person's neck. It's not for me to choke them out over what they did. I don't know. I feel like whether you call it karma, the universe, God, however you look at it, there seems to be eventually a natural order to things where these things take care of themselves, and either person realizes things and comes out of it even stronger, or they get stuck in that negative behavior. Oh, Becky, no, I get you. I don't want Natalie to think that I meant she was doing it. No, I hear you. Thank you for that. Jesse, yeah, it takes a strong mind and spirit to heal. It's often harder to heal than to just keep with the negative behavior because it's uncomfortable. You're leaving those familiar patterns, and you're now in a space where there's no familiarity, and it's hard to trust that you're in the right space when all you've known is a different way of behaving. I think I kind of feel like that summed it up. Nancy says, she knows, hon. We're still waiting for our dinner. Becky's an amazing cook. Saved by Grace says, when it feels as though nothing will ease your grief, hold on to the belief that every new sunrise brings you closer to comfort. That is a fantastic way to look at it. Joe Virus says, I stay far away from other people's drama. It's not my battle, and I'm sure I have no drama in my life. It's hard in my line of work too. I make sure I have no drama in my life. It's hard in my line of work too. I get that. Yes. Asen says, the only thing I'm judging is not making your child a priority. That kid needs peace until he's old enough to go his own path. Very true. And that is a lesson to be learned. And I think that's something she's going to wrap her head around. We never prioritize our families in Scientology. Again, this is not an excuse for behavior. My hope with the content that I do, I'm trying to understand it. Because if I understand it, I feel like I can learn from it rather than just hating on it. And sometimes I hate on it too. Depends on the day. But mostly I try to understand it, and I can really see that. Our children were not a priority in Scientology. The indoctrination stated that we had to put the group first, that they needed to be a priority, because if we're saving the planet, we're helping our children. So it's not even that Scientologists just like, well, they don't pay attention to their kids. It looks that way. And some of them are outright crap parents, and there's no doubt about that. But a lot of them think that by putting their money, their time, their effort into expanding Scientology, they're going to get rid of the implant station so that the people they love don't have to be on this repeat cycle here on Earth. That is what they believe based on their beliefs. And then you leave that, You might change those beliefs, but it doesn't mean you freed yourself from that familiar, crappy behavior. You might not even have realized it yet. And I think she's coming to realize that. And it's step one, acknowledging that you hurt people and how you hurt them. It's just one step. And so we'll see if she continues to share and talk about this, where things go. But I think it's very interesting from the perspective of learning. Bonnie says, I appreciate your level-headedness and objectivity. Thank you for that. Josiah says, I'm honestly giving Reese so much grace because she is 2 years out and she still has so much to learn. Absolutely. That's so true. And learning to prioritize things, people, your kids, whatever it is, yourself, that comes with that. That comes with that. Queen of Karma says, it's so hard to change your core beliefs too. It's like stripping yourself down and then rebuilding yourself. A lot of work. Very much so. That is how it feels, like you're standing there naked because you're letting go of these tools that didn't work, this way of thinking that didn't work. And until you get some new clothes, it's very vulnerable. And so what happens when we're vulnerable? We're a cat backed up in a bathtub. And sometimes we start doing this because we don't have the tools to recognize that we're just falling back into a behavior that's familiar. This I know. Reese has talked about multiple times on her videos about sometimes she wished she could just go back to Scientology. I don't think she means Scientology, the organization. I think back into a familiar way of being, even though it's wrong and harmful because it's familiar. When you change so much about your life, it's very unsettling, even though you came out of an abusive situation. Think about people who are in abusive situations, relationships for long term, right? There's a lot that comes out of that. And even though you know in your head that it should be different, you don't always feel that in your heart. It's complex. It's complicated. This is somebody that you love, but they're hurting you. And if you have issues of self-esteem or you grew up in a way that abuse was normal, that's normal. That's familiar. Of course that happens. Of course he hit me. It's because of what I said. I saw this happen in Scientology. My own daughter told me, well, of course I was on beans and rice. I didn't sell enough books. Of course I had to scrub the bathroom floor. My statistics were not up. Of course I had to stay up all night. No, you're justifying that bad behavior. What makes you think that's any way of behaving? That's not how my daughter grew up. That's not what we did at home. It took less than a year for her to be indoctrinated into that being normal behavior and a way of being. So imagine somebody from day one who spent that in Scientology. Again, not an excuse for bad behavior, but I think that there's a lot to learn here. Bella Note says, as my therapist told me, you can't unravel 35 years of stuff and expect immediate change results. Reese is open to changing, learning. That's why she's changed so much already. I agree. And she'll have a lot to deal with, at least with people who still have a willingness to want to, have a conversation about these things. And they don't have to either. They can have their boundary and just be like, I don't value this relationship enough to try and fix it. And that is okay too. We all get to make our choices that way. There's freedom in that. That's right, Jesse. I don't care how wise or smart you are. There's always more to learn. You could be 300 years old and still plenty to learn. And it's very complex. Gosh, it's complicated. People are complicated. And I think that's why we have a tendency to want to label them as hero, villain, good, bad. Because for us, we try to make sense of it. But I think the truth is it's a spectrum. At times we can be evil. At times we can be really good. We move along on that. From this, I know it was interesting to me that Reese said she doesn't talk to her therapist about Scientology. I bet that changes too. I hope so. I agree. And often it's like peeling an onion. It comes off in layers before you even realize that there's a Scientology piece in there that's holding that in place. So it could be that too. Sandy McKenna says, bad choices make great stories, but better choices make better endings. That is very poetic. Mama Opal, thank you for the reminder. Members only live today, 4 p.m. Central Time. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. We'll be doing that today. Puka Vista, I think she's realized she has a lot of amends to make and work to do. I agree. That's what I saw. I agree with that. Magnus says, there's a saying in Swedish, you know what you have, but not what you might get. Wise. Claudia, the pain of the loss, the waves, especially holidays, I finally redesigned the celebration to as a person alone. Oh gosh, I hear that. I feel that. And yes, I agree, Defunct. Sandy is full of wisdom today. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe as well if you want to enjoy more of this content. I'm going to talk to you guys later. Members only live stream at 4. And I hope all of you get out today and have an amazing cult-free day.